So this is just a quick look at how I've edited this photo. We can look at the developed settings, or the original settings. This was taken out in Lee Valley, which is a lovely nature reserve that spans the whole of London, and this was taken up in the north area. The image was taken using a D3S and the 85mm 1.8 at 1.8 and at 85, and if I remember rightly, I was shooting one stop under, which I didn't change from a previous shoot. This is the final look, which I'm quite happy with. We've got a lovely little bit of focus here, and the swirliness from more of the wheat and plants behind, and we've got slight out of focus areas. In hindsight, possibly shooting at 2.8 would have changed this, would have had a bit more in focus, but I prefer the slight look of things in focus, things out of focus, and the lovely blur that's been created. Now let's go into the developed settings. This is the original shot and its original adjustments. The wheat was originally at an angle, so the first thing I did was just straighten up the image, and then the next thing I played about with was my presets down on the left, and ended up creating a desaturated look and a more vintage style look than the natural look that's created from using natural colours and the original white balance and light. So the whole focus of the vintage moody desaturation hopes to reduce a slight bit of the brightness and the saturation of the image, while still keeping the rest of the image nice. This process generally just involved changing the profile, picking quite a nice vintage warm look over possibly the cooler and more naturalish looks. So originally I went through and just ran the settings. It autoed the photo, and then I played about with the highlights, shadows, whites and blacks. I quite like how the highlights have ended up. Like you still got a reasonable amount of detail in there compared to, say, the highlights which are completely out and blown, or even here still being slightly too bright. The same with the shadows. I want to bring some detail out from the shadows here, and reducing them or even increasing them too much just changes the composition of the image completely. In the edit, you've kind of lost that moodiness of the final photo. Same with the whites. The whites have been brought up slightly. This looks way too flat for my opinion, and even at 0 we're not getting enough contrast in the image to make it look interesting. And then the same with the blacks. Going down, pulling it down, you're losing a lot of detail, and then pushing it up, you're flattening up the image a lot more, which might look good and some people might enjoy, but I feel the image becomes too flat. Next thing that's happened is the texture of the image has been brought up to try and bring out a tiny bit more detail. Same with the clarity, and then I've kept 0 dehaze because it was a nice bright harsh light day. The vibrance has been increased slightly and the saturation has been reduced to try and just change the image, try and make it a bit more moody. You can see as it's slightly brighter, you've got a slight bit more detail compared to being at -20. I normally like the strong contrast over the linear. It helps exaggerate the lovely vignette that's around here that I've created later on. I've kept all the saturation, luminance and hue the same, just because so much of the image is that strong yellowish colour and that blue colour, so changing either one of them will vastly affect the image. I know I could have done local adjustments, but for me, I don't enjoy spending 2, 3, 4 hours trying to create a final look that in the end I might change. I've kept it on my normal sharpening. Same with the noise reduction. I haven't wanted to reduce any noise. That grain adds a lovely look to it. It kind of enhances the vintage look. As the same, I've not wanted to remove chromatic aberration. There isn't any really in the image, and the profile correction brightens it up and gets rid of the vignette slightly, and the whole look is trying to add a vignette to try and focus in on your area here and the subject. On the right, yes, I've done slight alterations here. However, they're not shown for some reason. And then I've created the vignette, feathering it quite a lot, so you don't have like a harsh edge, which I find a lot more distracting, and I find that the slightly less feathered approach helps you subconsciously look in instead of being forced to look into that area. That's it really. Feel free to leave any comments or any suggestions on this photo or this preset in general.